Ever wonder why some of the most incredible movies of the 1970s were buried by the mainstream? Could it be that these films were simply too ahead of their time? From a chilling Australian nightmare to a rock opera horror that broke all the rules, these cult classics still resonate with modern audiences, yet no one talks about them. What happened to these gems? The answer might just shock you. Keep watching to uncover the hidden stories behind the most underrated 70s movies that deserved far better. The Devil? Probably. 1977. Could a film about the apocalyptic dread of modern youth still feel this chilling today? The Devil probably offers a bleak, haunting look at the malaise of 1970s youth brought to life by director Robert Bresson's unflinching gaze. This French psychological drama isn't easy to watch, nor should it be. It captures the existential angst of a generation at the brink, with a potent blend of nihilism and terror. What truly sets this film apart is its willingness to explore uncomfortable truths, our fear of an uncertain future, a rejection of societal norms, and the unrelenting pressure of isolation. The film's narrative is elliptical, disjointed, and fragmented, mirroring the fragmented inner lives of its characters. Though it initially underperformed, this exploration of personal despair and societal disillusionment makes it incredibly relevant today. Often overshadowed by more conventional films of its time, The Devil probably remains one of the most potent, unsettling pieces of cinema. Its cold, reflective mood still a shocking revelation for modern audiences. Smile, 1975. Behind every smile, there's a sinister truth. Smile is a sharp, biting satire that pokes fun at American beauty pageants but, beneath the surface, exposes the ruthlessness and hollow nature of these competitions. On the outside, it's a comedic, light-hearted exploration of a young woman entering a beauty contest. But as we go deeper, the film unearths the darker implications of self-image, pressure, and the emptiness of societal approval. This film may seem a little dated in terms of its visual aesthetic, but its social commentary has only become more relevant in today's culture obsessed with perfection. A standout performance by Bruce Dern amplifies the film's discomfort, adding a layer of subtle tension and dark humor. When it first debuted, Smile couldn't quite shake off the stigma of being a quirky comedy, which led to its underwhelming reception. In hindsight, it's a scathing critique of our obsession with superficiality. It's a film that deserves a second chance, one that speaks to anyone grappling with identity in a world obsessed with outward appearances. Girlfriends, 1978. What if friendship was more complicated than it seemed? Girlfriends is one of those hidden gems that quietly captured the essence of modern womanhood in the late 1970s. In a decade dominated by blockbuster male-led films, this intimate portrayal of a young woman's life after a breakup and the growing pains that follow felt like a breath of fresh air. What makes Girlfriends stand out is its honest, unflinching approach to female relationships and the complexities of independence. As its protagonist, Susan, navigates the aftermath of her failed engagement and explores her personal ambitions, the film deftly explores friendship, self-discovery, and the loneliness that often accompanies growth. Directed by Claudia Weil, it was praised for its authenticity and refreshing perspective on female friendships that weren't rooted in conventional romantic tropes. Unfortunately, it was overlooked at the time of its release. The film's charm is in its simplicity and relatability, its understated narrative providing a sharp contrast to the more bombastic films of the era. A true gem of personal storytelling, Girlfriends is a perfect example of cinema that understood its audience yet never fully got its due. The American Friend, 1977. What happens when the art of friendship is tainted by deception and murder? The American Friend is a gripping psychological thriller by Wim Wenders that thrives on the tension between two unlikely men, one a German art dealer, the other an American expatriate. Their bond, forged through a shared interest in life's darker sides, unravels into a complex story of crime, betrayal, and moral ambiguity. What makes this film particularly striking is its ability to turn what could be a simple crime story into an exploration of identity, fate, and desperation. The American Friend uses the genre as a vehicle to delve deep into the human condition, asking unsettling questions about trust and loyalty. Wenders masterfully uses his camera to capture moments of stillness, creating an atmosphere that's both tense and contemplative. The film's surreal style and deliberate pacing make it a unique entry in the crime genre. Though it didn't find mass appeal upon release, The American Friend has since developed a cult following for its intricate storytelling and stunning performances, most notably from Dennis Hopper and Bruno Ganz. If you're after something that challenges conventional narrative structures, this film is an essential watch. The Long Goodbye, 1973. What if the ultimate detective was a man out of time? The Long Goodbye turns the classic noir detective genre on its head, offering a darkly comic and fiercely modern take on Raymond Chandler's iconic private eye, Philip Marlowe. Instead of the hard-boiled, no-nonsense detective, Robert Altman gives us Elliot Gould, a laid-back, almost bumbling Marlowe who feels entirely out of place in the 1970s. The film is a beautifully layered critique of both the genre and the era it inhabits, wrapped up in a complex murder mystery that refuses to follow traditional plot lines. Altman's keen eye for social commentary shines through as the film deftly navigates themes of alienation, corruption, and moral ambiguity. The film was initially misunderstood, with audiences not knowing what to make of Gould's untraditional take on the classic detective role. Over time, however, The Long Goodbye has become a cult favorite for its subversion of genre expectations and its exploration of Los Angeles' post-Watergate malaise. This anti-noir's unconventional approach was revolutionary for its time, offering a smart, cynical perspective on the classic detective story while exploring the shifting landscape of American society in the early 70s. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, 1974. What does a man's desperate pursuit of a bounty say about the human condition? Sam Peckinpah's violent and cynical film, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, follows the brutal journey of a man who, for money, is willing to risk everything. Set in the seedy underworld of Mexico, it's a savage, nihilistic commentary on greed, desperation, and moral decay. The film's grim tone is punctuated by the existential journey of its protagonist, who, in the midst of his quest, begins to question the very worth of the prize he's chasing. The violence is unrelenting, yet it's the emotional destruction of the lead character that hits hardest. Peckinpah's film didn't get the recognition it deserved due to its brutal violence and harsh tone, but its raw depiction of despair is exactly what makes it a must-watch today. This film transcends its genre and speaks to the soul-deep emptiness that comes with chasing hollow victories. If you haven't seen it, you're missing out on one of the most intense, underappreciated films of the 70s. Wake in Fright, 1971. What if a simple trip turned into a nightmare of psychological terror? Wake in Fright is an Australian thriller that's as haunting as it is brutal. The film follows a schoolteacher stranded in a desolate outback town, where he's slowly drawn into a nightmarish descent, losing his sanity to the primitive instincts of the locals. What begins as an innocent stop on the way home turns into a wild, alcoholic, and violent spiral. The film masterfully uses the vast, empty landscapes of the Australian outback as both setting and character, suffocating its protagonist in isolation. Director Ted Kotcheff's exploration of masculinity, desperation, and the loss of self-control creates an unflinching portrayal of a man's mental breakdown. Initially, it was almost lost to history, too disturbing and raw for audiences to handle at the time. But with its intense atmosphere, stark cinematography, and the unforgettable performance of Donald Pleasant's Wake in Fright has developed a loyal cult following. The film's unapologetic brutality and grim portrayal of societal collapse are as relevant today as they were in the 1970s. For fans of psychological thrillers and horror, it's a must-watch, offering a tense ride that's hard to shake off even after the credits roll. Let's Scare Jessica to Death, 1971. How far can a mind be pushed before it breaks completely? Let's Scare Jessica to Death is a psychological horror film that takes the viewer on a slow-burn descent into madness. Jessica, freshly released from a psychiatric hospital, moves to a secluded farmhouse with her husband, hoping for peace. But the isolation only triggers her paranoia, and as strange occurrences pile up, it becomes unclear whether Jessica is truly losing her grip on reality or if something more sinister is at play. What sets this film apart is its ability to keep the audience guessing. Are the terrifying events supernatural, or is Jessica simply unraveling? The film's dreamlike, ethereal atmosphere amplifies its unsettling tension. The pacing is deliberately slow, allowing the eerie quiet of the countryside to seep into the viewer's subconscious, making each whisper of wind or creak of floorboards feel ominous. Initially underappreciated and overshadowed by flashier horror films of the time, Let's Scare Jessica to Death remains a quietly haunting piece of cinema that deserves recognition for its masterful blending of psychological horror and existential dread. It's a film that lingers, demanding viewers to reflect on the fragility of the mind. Two-Lane Blacktop, 1971. What does it mean to be free in a world that demands conformity? Two-Lane Blacktop is a meditative road movie that explores this question with quiet precision. The film follows two drifters, known only as the driver and the mechanic, as they race across the American highway in their customized car, engaging in a cross-country challenge with a man simply known as GTO. On the surface, it's a story about a car race, but Two-Lane Blacktop is far more philosophical. The film is about the search for meaning in a world that values speed, success, and materialism. It's a portrait of isolation, a road trip without destination. The sparse dialogue and slow pacing force the audience to confront the emptiness of the journey. The film's minimalistic approach, paired with stunning cinematography that captures the vast emptiness of the American landscape, evokes a sense of existential longing. Though Two-Lane Blacktop failed to capture mainstream attention upon release, it has grown into a cult classic over time for its avant-garde take on the road movie genre. The film's understated performances and its commentary on human disconnection make it an essential watch for anyone interested in unconventional cinema and the deeper meanings hidden beneath the surface. The Shout, 1978, What Happens When a Man's Voice Has the Power to Destroy? The Shout is a chilling British psychological horror film that explores the destructive power of sound. The story follows a psychiatrist, played by Alan Bates, who, after a chance encounter with a mysterious stranger, learns that the man has the ability to kill with his shout. As the stranger recounts his past and reveals the dark origins of his power, the film becomes a psychological examination of control, guilt, and the terrifying influence of the human mind. The film's eerie atmosphere and unsettling premise draw on the concept of sound as a weapon, a force that is both invisible and deadly. Director Jerzy Skolimowski uses a fragmented narrative structure, blending surreal, almost dreamlike sequences with grounded moments of horror to create a sense of disorientation and dread. What makes The Shout especially effective is its ability to tap into primal fears, fear of the unknown, the uncontrollable, and the power that one person can hold over another. While it wasn't widely recognized when it was first released, The Shout has since gained a cult following for its unsettling tone, thought-provoking themes, and unconventional narrative style. It's a film that lingers long after the credits roll, leaving the viewer to ponder the fragility of the human mind and the terrifying consequences of unchecked power. Martin, 1977. What if the story of a vampire wasn't about immortality, but about alienation? Martin is George A. Romero's brilliant, gritty take on the vampire genre, reimagining the myth of the undead as a disturbing psychological journey of a young man named Martin, John Amplas, who believes he is a vampire. Unlike the charming, immortal creatures we typically see in films, Martin is a deeply troubled, isolated figure who struggles with an overwhelming urge to drink blood. But unlike his cinematic predecessors, he's not a supernatural being. His actions are driven by a psychological trauma that makes his self-imposed curse all the more tragic. Romero's exploration of urban decay, loneliness, and the blurred lines between fantasy and reality is both haunting and profound. The film is much more than just a horror flick. It's a poignant study of a young man's unraveling mind in the face of social and psychological isolation. Martin is one of Romero's most underappreciated works, often overshadowed by his iconic Night of the Living Dead. The film's raw, emotional narrative is perfectly complemented by its gritty, almost documentary-style cinematography, which makes the viewer feel like they're witnessing Martin's personal descent into madness in real time. Initially underseen, Martin has grown into a cult classic for its unique twist on the vampire myth, its psychological depth, and its chilling exploration of isolation and self-doubt. This is a film that's not just about blood, it's about the darkness within. Phantom of the Paradise, 1974. What if rock and roll, horror, and satire collided to create a timeless, genre-defying masterpiece? Phantom of the Paradise is Brian De Palma's audacious blend of the Phantom of the Opera, glam rock, and horror, delivering a film so ahead of its time that audiences simply didn't know what to make of it upon its release. The film follows Winslow Leach, William Finley, a talented but disfigured composer who, after being wronged by a music mogul named Swan, Paul Williams, seeks revenge at a lavish rock and roll opera house. What unfolds is a stunning mix of tragedy, revenge, and rock opera, all set against a visually extravagant backdrop of neon lights, glitter, and gothic horror. De Palma's direction is brash and bold, with a soundtrack that is still iconic to this day, an unsettling yet electrifying mix of horror, romance, and satire. Phantom of the Paradise was a commercial failure when it first debuted, but over time it has developed a devoted cult following for its offbeat narrative, dazzling visual style, and its biting critique of the music industry's exploitation of artists. This film challenges expectations, making a daring statement about art, fame, and the price one pays for success. A true hidden gem, Phantom of the Paradise is a cinematic experience like no other, bold, weird, and absolutely unforgettable. If you haven't seen it yet, you're missing out on one of the most revolutionary films of the 1970s. So, which forgotten 70s cult classic do you think deserved the biggest second chance? These films were strange, risky, misunderstood, and sometimes too bold for their own era. But that's exactly why they still matter. Drop your favorite underrated cult gem in the comments, hit like, share this with a true movie fan, and subscribe for more buried classics.